Hello everyone and welcome to the FPL Cougar Show. I'm Chris. In today's show we'll be taking a look back at Game Week 1 and sharing some key stats and my thoughts ahead of Game Week 2. If you're new to watching the show, hi, thanks for joining me. This season I'm streaming by myself. Kieran is taking a break, although he may be back for some shows if I can convince him. But basically I want to get back on top of my mini leagues. I've had a couple of rough seasons, so I'm hoping to have a good one. And I think these live shows are giving me a good platform to chat to you guys about how we can do better together. I want to use this show basically as a springboard, bounce some ideas off you guys. So if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, like the video as we share the ups and downs of this season. Oh, and before I forget, if you haven't already, please join the FPL Cougars Mini League using the link in the video description below, where you can compete against the millions already in there from around the world. Now then, I'm going to get straight into it with my review of Game Week 1. As I'm talking through it, please feel free to share both your Game Week rank as well as your overall rank will be a Game Week rank. But I want to hear from you guys where it went wrong, where it went right this week. Was it a good captaincy pick? Did you get your bench right? Yeah, just let me know what it was. I can see in the chat FPL Penguin with 110 points this week, which is massive. Huge score. Pop in the chat how you guys did. I want to hear some good stories. I don't mind hearing some bad ones, but here we go. My review, 95 points I ended on, which I was pretty pleased with. Like a lot of people, had Fernandes and Salah make up the majority of my points. Antonio chipping in with a nice 13, and he obviously could have got a few more if he hadn't have missed his penalty, but it was good to get an assist off the back of that. Alexander-Arnold, Tsimikas as well, double Liverpool defence, rocking the clean sheet. Danny Ings with that 97th minute penalty. It was a good game week. The disappointment, I suppose, was Barnes, really, because if anyone watched last week's show, they'll know I had Benrahma in there up until, and I was pretty set on my team. Benrahma was in there alongside Gundogan, and it was probably, Thursday evening or Friday morning that I made the decision to get rid of him and get Barnes in. So that was sort of a loss of about 9 points, which would have seen me in the 100 club in Game Week 1, which, I'm sure many people did, because the fact that I've got 95 points and around 700,000 makes me think that there's a lot of people over 100 in the top there. What we're going to do on tonight's show, feel free to share your scores. Like I say, I'm going to talk through the upcoming fixtures this game week. I'm going to pop them up on screen now, and also the sort of fixtures from game weeks 2 to 5, essentially looking at teams' good runs or good fixtures they've got. This graphic on the screen now, courtesy of FF Hub. Let me use some of their graphics kindly this season. There's a link in the description to sign up and look at these sort of key stats and the fixtures yourself. So get on that if you haven't already. Now we're going to start with Liverpool Burnley, the first game week of the week, and Mo Salah obviously returned quite heavily against Norwich, 2 assists and a goal, and he led the way for expected points with 7.9 in the game against Jota. Jota came in with 7.5. Salah looked like, he was ready to kickstart the season in good form. 4 shots in the box, laid on 2 big chances. He looks good for the captaincy against Burnley, but it's a tricky one. Burnley have played well against Liverpool at Anfield in recent seasons, and Salah has only scored once in his last 4 games against them. So his record isn't great there, and Burnley have been a bit of a sticking point for Liverpool recently. I'm kind of leaning towards captaincy on Salah over Fernandes, purely based on the fact there's going to be fans back at Anfield. I think that's going to be a huge factor this weekend. I think we saw it in Game Week 1 that teams turned up to play in front of their home fans. It started with Brentford on Friday night. Man United took it to another level against Leeds. I think Chelsea put in a dominating performance, and Spurs ran it out the weekend with a comfortable win. I think you sort of saw the flip side of it as well, because Newcastle sort of played definitely more attacking than they've done in recent seasons, and perhaps that was a case because the fans were back in the stadium. They wanted to be a bit more creative, go forward a lot more, and in doing so sort of left themselves a bit open. So I think this game week was an unusual one, mainly because I think the number of goals scored, and there was some poor defending in there as well. But I think teams were more confident going forward, and maybe we'll see that in front of their home fans, especially in game week 2. So on Liverpool as well, Tsimikas, someone who I wasn't planning to get in, but I just thought I can't miss up on this opportunity because if he gets a clean sheet in game week 1, then it's almost a guarantee he's going to rise in price. And sure enough, clean sheet. He actually played pretty well as well. 2 shots in the box, 3 shots in the box, 3 touches in the box, which is 2 more than Trent. He had 12 penalty box entries to Trent's 8. He also took 4 more crosses than Trent, 3 more corners, and 1 more free kick, which for a 4 million asset was it was a pretty good performance really. And I expect he'll start against Burnley. Happy to own him as I think his price will continue to rise, and that'll be really useful for when Robertson does come back and take his place. I've got a few questions in the chat. Papa Smurf says, is Gundu out for Norwich now? That's quite an important one for me to keep an eye on because I've got him in my team and he's got the yellow flag. I think a journalist tweeted in the last half an hour saying his shoulder injury isn't as bad as expected and he may not even be ruled out for the Norwich game. So I'm keeping an eye on that one for sure because I got a Man City midfielder in. I couldn't quite stretch to Mahrez, so Gundu was my option. And if he's out for Norwich, it'll be a bit of disappointment, but I'm going to leave it until the last day and go from there on that one. On the Burnley side of things, they had a really poor opening day, actually. I think their goal probably should have been ruled out. That Tarkowski looked like a bit of a push on Mopai. They had the 3rd highest expected goals conceded with 2.3, allowed 3 big chances, which was a joint 2nd worst of all teams. So, I don't know, historically, Burnley not a porous at the back, but they didn't put up some good numbers in game week 1, and going to Anfield this weekend could be a really tricky task for them if they're not up to speed. So captaincy at the moment on Salah. Villa host Newcastle this game week, and Villa are actually quite highly rated in the fixture difficulty chart on FF Hub. They've got games against Newcastle and Brentford in the next 2 before a Chelsea away game, and then they play Everton in game week 5. But I thought they were a bit underwhelming, really. They had 1 shot on target for Ings, 1 goal, but Villa as a team only managed 1.1 xg. So to put that in perspective, a penalty is worth 0.75 xg. So from open play, they had the second worst attacking team in game week 1. So yeah, they really were underwhelming, despite the fact Bailey started, Buendia was there, Ings was there. It didn't really click. I thought the goal McGinn scored, I mean, the XG on that was super low. It's a fantastic finish, but they didn't really impress me in open play. So I think it'll be an interesting game this against Newcastle. No, Newcastle, like I say, Wilson took his goal well. I had him in my team leading up to game week 1. I really do like Callum Wilson. He's the focal point for that team, and he was in the right place at the right time. You get the feeling that most of the goal involvements Newcastle have this season are going to come through him, and I didn't take a chance on him because of his injury, and now he's come back, obviously scored in game week 1, and he looked good. So he's one I'm definitely monitoring, but Newcastle themselves look a bit suspect at the back, so it could be susceptible. It's an interesting matchup, this one, because Villa have invested a lot in their front line and to replace Grealish, of course, and they've almost replaced him with 3 players who are going to take some time to get used to each other. They've got some great fixtures to do it, and I kind of hope that owning Ings, he can continue his goal scoring form. But yeah, based on their underlying numbers, I'm not that confident he's going to get a mega haul this weekend, but we'll see. Hazam in the chat says, thoughts on a short-term punt on Ferran Torres instead of Barnes. Now, it's definitely something I've been toying with, especially, like I say, the Gundu news, the shoulder injury he might have picked up. I was thinking, man, I really need some coverage for that Norwich game, because as we'll get to in a bit, they weren't great defensively, and Man City are going to want to bounce back after that disappointing loss against Spurs. So having some Man City attacking coverage could be almost essential this game week. So yeah, I don't mind Torres. If Gundu is injured, it could be that he's got more of a chance of retaining his place in that front three. I thought he looked quite lively, but I think it's definitely one to keep an eye on. Guardiola's press conference this game week. Cancelo was one. I know he's a different position in the team, but if you're looking for a sort of a attacking punt almost, I think Cancelo performed quite well, as we'll get onto a little bit later. Palace against Brentford matchup, I think Saturday afternoon here. Palace with 0.2 xg, 4 shots, was far and away the worst performance in game week 1 by any team. I kind of think that perhaps says a little bit more about Chelsea than it does about Palace at this stage, but for me, they're a wait and see. There's no one really in their team I've got my eye on at the moment, and as the graphic shows, they're fixture difficulty, they're sort of ranked a little bit lower than the mid-table. They've got this nice game against Brentford, then they got difficult games against West Ham, Tottenham, and then Liverpool. So, yeah, Palace are very much a wait and see at the moment. And to be honest, in seasons gone by, it's been hard to sort of get anyone other than Zaha or maybe Eze for them. So I'll keep watch from a distance and keep them in mind. Brentford, they played really well, and I'm really happy for them because as a promoted team, fantastic to get off to a good start, especially against like a traditional big side such as Arsenal. I thought they applied themselves really, really well. Tony's probably the one to talk about. I mean, nearly, as of last night, nearly 60,000 people had already got rid of him. Thought he had like a quiet game from an attacking point of view. He seemed to link the play more, dropping deep. I'm going to give him a few more games to judge him. Obviously, as a new striker, there was a lot of trepidation heading into the start of the season that Tony wouldn't be quite right or quite up to speed as your third striker at 6'5". And when you see Adam Armstrong scoring a goal and the Watford striker, who our name is just miss me now, Dennis, I think it is, at 5 million. There's some cheap options who perform well in game week 1. So, but I'm prepared to persevere with Tony a bit longer. The fact that he's on penalties in a game against Palace, who didn't look too hot in the game against Chelsea, then yeah, I'll give him another chance. So on to Man City against Norwich. So Man City was third 1-0 loss in a row, and I think they looked a bit blunt up front. So that the need for Kane seems to be increasing. So, but they've got the chance to turn it around now. So they've got 3 home games in 4 against Norwich, Arsenal, and Southampton, all of which are in the bottom half for expected goals conceded in the opening game week. And I think if they're going to turn the tide, now is a fantastic time to do it. Which is why I'm really hoping either Gundu pulls forward, or I've got to make a move to get in a more of a sure starter. I think Cancelo, like I said a moment ago, he looked the most threatening of all of their players. 3 shots, 1 in the box, and 1 big chance created. Still 6 million, owned by less than 10%, so a bit of a differential at 7.4%, and I think he's got the capacity to put in some, pick up a clean sheet, maybe a couple of attacking returns in the next 4. On the attackers, like I mentioned earlier, it was Torres who led the way with 2 shots in the box and 1 big chance. Mahrez had 1 shot in the box and 1 big chance against Tottenham. I picked Gundu and he had 2 shots, 1 touch in the box. I think it's a bit of a toss-up on who's going to be their most reliable attacker until Kevin De Bruyne comes back. Kevin came on and looked sharp, so maybe he'll pick up the mantle. But with Salah and Fernandes looking so strong, it's difficult to get another 12 million player in your midfield at the moment. Norwich, not a whole heap to say. They had the second worst expected goals conceded of all teams. They allowed 9 shots in the box, which is the highest, and allowed Liverpool 40 touches in the box, which was also the highest all weekend. So the fact that they allowed Liverpool in their box so much makes me think that City are going to be all over them, and there will be some big returns. I kind of see this being a 2 or 3, maybe in a 4-0. So I think picking a City option is a wise one this weekend, and maybe even an outside bet for a captaincy. It's just that classic Guardiola rotation you've got to put up with. In the chat, Mark says keep Jota for Burnley. I kind of think keep Jota for Burnley. He got subbed off early, didn't he, for Firmino after taking his goal nicely. It's one of those ones where Jota and Firmino are going to see sort of shared minutes, I think, this season. But if you time it right, and they've got some good fixtures, even if he comes on, he's usually involved. Firmino and Jota both scored, so it does give you hope. I'd be thinking maybe long term after their fixtures get a bit more tricky, then it might be time to move Jota on for a more reliable sort of 7.5 million week in, week out player. But for now, he's in form, he scored, and I don't think Klopp's got much reason to drop him, as he's definitely not going to be overworked with matches. Is it Stibul in the chat said 112 points in game week 1, but he can't enjoy it because he's an Arsenal fan. I'm sorry for you, really sorry for you. And then you've got some tough games coming up as well. Tough game this weekend against Chelsea. I don't know. Do you have any Arsenal players in your team? I doubt it with that score, but you never know. Others in the chat, if you missed the start of the show, let me know how you guys did in game week 1. I'd be interested to see if you were happy or disappointed with how you got on, if it was regrets or something you did really well. Let me know. I want to hear all about it. All right, on to Leeds against Everton. So according to the fixture ticker on Hub, they now rank 4th overall for the easiest fixtures between game weeks 2 and 7. They dropped down a little bit between 2 and 5, which sort of tells you that their fixtures do pick up in game weeks 6 and 7. So it may not be wise to focus on them now, but they've got They've got a home game against Everton this weekend. They had 2 big chances against United. I think the Island goal, I was going to say it's a bit of a fluke, but it was a bit of a wonder goal. His XG for that strike was just 1.05, but they had sort of 2 big chances against United otherwise, so they did create some good moments. I think Rafinha looked the most dangerous from both open play and set pieces. He had an expected points of 4.7 from 2 shots and 1 big chance created, which was slightly better than Bamford did. So I think with Leeds at the moment, for me, I'm definitely keeping my options open with them. I liked Bamford last season. I liked Rafinha last season. If Barnes, Gundu, and perhaps Ings, maybe another striker spot opening up if I can free up some funds to move Tony around, I think Leeds do look good, especially from sort of game week 6-7 onwards. On the Everton side of things, it seemed like classic Rafa Benitez. He said he was going to do it. He was going to get Townsend and more so Damari Gray, but it was mainly Townsend in this game to just put balls in the box, and it worked. Townsend had 7 crosses. It was the 6th highest overall of all players this game week. So the plan to feed Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison is unfolding before our eyes. He played 65 minutes, but not bad at Townsend at 5.5 million, considering their fixtures, 0.8% owned, so he's a bit of a mega differential. I think he could be, if you're looking for a real outside bet, he could be a decent pick, especially if you're playing 3-5-2 at the moment. Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison scored 11 and 7 points respectively, so both be rubbing their hands with the fixtures, and both ownerships less than 15%. So I think while Everton's fixtures look fairly positive, like I said, they've got Leeds this game week, who just come off the back of conceding 5. They play Brighton, and then they play Burnley and Wolves, so not bad fixtures for them at all, really. And don't mind Calvert-Lewin, and don't mind Richarlison either. So yeah, definitely keep miles on both of them. Papa Smurf 101 in the chat with Tsimikas and Amati benched. Oh, very unlucky. That could have been another mega score, but at least you hit 100-point mark, which is very nice. Paul in chat says, will Havertz start this weekend or switch to Mount and reduce the rotation risk? I think Havertz is going to come back in this weekend. That would be my feeling on that. Switch to Mount, I'm not sure about. I think there's better options in the midfield bracket rather than Mount at the moment, but it may be worth looking at other teams, especially given Chelsea. I think Chelsea I think they're in line for a good season, but given Mount's history, he's not been that prolific for goals and assists, but perhaps that will change with Lukaku. He might get more chances further up the pitch. I mean, if it were me, I'd probably lean towards someone like Greenwood, Jota, maybe Ferran Torres, but it's an interesting one. I'd maybe stick with Havertz if you've got him. On to Brighton. I thought they played quite well against a Burnley side. They've got a good record there. I remember they wiped out Pope's chance of the Golden Glove a couple seasons ago. So they've got history there, but they did play well at the weekend. Mopai looked quite threatening, as he always seems to do at the start of the season, man. It's just, he loves it. It's 4 shots in the box, 1 big chance, 6.5 million. He always seems around that price, but to be honest, he always does frustrate as the season goes on. So he's probably not someone I'm going to go near, but yeah, he did play well in game week 1, and Brighton were actually the 3rd highest for XG with 2.3 in game week 1. They had 12 shots in the box, 2nd highest of all teams, and that could bode well. For Liverpool, who play, of course, Burnley this game week. So Brighton's fixtures are good. They actually sit top of the FF Hub ticker between game weeks 2 and 5. They've got this home game against Watford, a home game against Everton, and they travel to. They also got a home game against Leeds, I should say. So yeah, they've got some nice games in there, mixed in with an away game against Brentford. So I feel like they've got a good chance up against Watford this weekend. Watford, I tell you what, they surprised me this game week. Like I say, Villa, I had high hopes for this season, but they bossed them about. Dennis, that £5 million forward, he played really well, caused lots of trouble for Villa at the weekend. 5 shots in the box, 1 goal, 1 assist. Played 65 minutes, which was a bit of a surprise, but potentially looks like he could play or be in line to play a bit longer next weekend. But yeah, Dennis at 5 million could be an interesting shout for those playing 3-5-2 and want a striker who they can sort of rely on to get minutes and maybe even attacking returns too. So definitely one to keep an eye on. Southampton against Man United this weekend. Now, a lot of people on the Twitter community, and me included, have been weighing up Bruno's captaincy credentials this game week. United played well against Southampton last season at Old Trafford. I think it was the 9-0 game, and Bruno did look unreal. He kicked off obviously this season with a lovely hat-trick, all from open play. He topped all players for non-penalty XG with 1.06, two big chances, and he was only behind Antonio for expected points in game week 1. And just those darting runs in behind, took his third goal so well. Loved it, just smashed it into the roof of the net. He looks like he's in great, really high in confidence at the moment. And I think United just played really well. And if they're given the space, I feel like they can hurt any team. And I think it's going to be a difficult game this for Southampton. Pogba looks in great form, of course. He's had a price rise, 7.5 to 7.6 million this week, 367,000 new owners. I'll be interested in the chat if you are one of them, but he had a great game week 1, 4 assists from him. And United, there was a lot of focus on Luke Shaw at the start of the season. He had over 50% ownership heading into game week 1, but United conceded just two big chances they conceded, which was about mid-table, and only 10 shots on target and three in the box. So they were pretty middling. So I was a bit disappointed that Shaw didn't manage to keep the clean sheet. When you watch the game back and think they only conceded to that worldie, it was a bit of a kick in the teeth. And the fact that he added to it with that yellow card was a bit disappointing. But yeah, I'm not so sure on Shaw, which sounds strange considering his ownership and the fact that I went in on him for game week 1. I kind of feel like there's some good options in the Chelsea backline. I feel like they'll be more resilient than United this season. So, yeah, although Shaw's got high ownership, I am thinking about potentially moving him on. I'll do a sort of a team reveal, and you can see how my team lines up for game week 2, sort of at midway point of these fixtures, and then we'll flip back. But just to touch on Southampton before we move on, they conceded 3 big chances, which was the joint second worst of all teams, 5th worst for XGC, so that's expected goals conceded with 2.1. So I do think that they will miss, or like Paul has just said in the chat, I think they'll miss Vestergaard a lot. I mean, they looked a bit vulnerable at the back, and that was against an Everton side who, let's be honest, Calvert-Lewin, it was his first game. He hadn't played any pre-season games, first game since last season that we're aware of. He might have played some behind closed doors. And Richarlison, of course, tired and coming back from, I think, the Olympics he was involved in. So, yeah, the fact that they allowed 3 goals against Everton makes me think that United are probably in for quite a few chances this weekend. So, yeah, the Fernandes captaincy option is looming. But, yeah, the pull of the Salah in front of Anfield is really conflicting me. Be interested to know who you guys in the chat are thinking of captaining this week. Let me know. Maybe it helped me sway my decision a little bit. All right, just to preview my team. I think we're about halfway through the fixtures now before we head into Wolves Spurs. I'll do a little short preview of the team and show where we are at the moment with it, and then come back to it in the moment. So I'll crack on with the fixtures as we talk through this, and you can have a little look at that. So Wolves host Spurs this weekend. I think Spurs look so fit and fresh. I think they've really benefited from basically having not many of their players feature in the Euros, and players like Bergwijn, Son, Dele Alli, they looked really great. So Bergwijn actually led the way for expected points in the game against City, 5.3. He had 3 shots in the box, 1 big chance, and I think not a bad performance really for 6 million. And I think he could be a good differential. I think it's not a bad option. Bergwijn at 6 million, he was getting quite far forward. Maybe the game against City suited him because they were able to play on the break, and he got in a few times around the back with some good chances. But yeah, he's one to monitor, especially if Kane leaves. It looks like he could be given more chances in the forward line. Really decent set of fixtures for Spurs. They got Watford, Crystal Palace in the next 2, and they play Chelsea at home and Arsenal away. So very London feel to the next 4 fixtures, and sort of middling on the fixture ticker at the moment. In terms of Wolves, the player I wanted to keep an eye on in game week 1 was Jimenez. He had 3 shots in the box, but an XG of just 0.04, so he didn't rank too highly there. He's a striker I want to keep my eye on because at 7.5 million, you know he's got penalties in his locker. If he scores, he typically gets bonus. Just need to see how he plays in this new look Wolves team, and if he's able to recapture some of the form before he had his awful head injury last season. On Wolves, 12 shots in the box for them in game week 1, and it was the second highest of all teams. So they did well to take shots and batter the Leicester front door, but yeah, Schmeichel managed to keep them out. And I don't know, I feel like this is going to be quite an open game. I think the fact that Nuno is returning to Wolves already, I think he's probably going to want to go out on the attack. And Traoré looked quite strong in game week 1, so perhaps there's a chance for Wolves to hit Spurs on the break a few times. FPL Penguin in the chat says, not sure if I've answered this, but thoughts on Greenwood to Mahrez as a transfer. Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea. It's a shame Greenwood scored this weekend because it's always easier to transfer a player that hasn't performed well. And Mahrez, he didn't particularly have a strong game in game week 1. I think he looked quite wide and he didn't seem to get involved too much in the final third. But the pull of that Norwich game is really strong. So if it were me, I'd probably stick with Greenwood. I quite like this Southampton fixture for United, and whilst the Norwich fixture is really good for Mahrez, I think the fact that Greenwood's already hit the ground running this season, he could be good for a few more weeks. So yeah, I think Greenwood for me on that one, but it is close, really, really close. On to Arsenal against Chelsea. It's a really tough start to the season. So like Saint Aboué said in the chat a little bit earlier, disappointing as an Arsenal fan. They really missed their experienced finishers. So I heard on a few podcasts and chat shows this morning that it sounded like there might have been more to the Aubameyang and Lacazette missing game week 1 than rather than just an illness. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. Arteta seemed a bit coy after the game on it. So yeah, I'd be surprised if they're back, if there has been some sort of disciplinary issue there. So we'll wait and see in his press conference on Friday what's happened there. But if they're missing those two again, I thought they looked blunt without them. They created a lot of chances. They had 13 shots in the box, which was I think the most of all teams in game week 1, but 0 big chances. So they poor on the sort of the clinical chances front, but they were good creatively. So if they can get their strikers back, they may be able to do something against Chelsea. But man, Chelsea's defensive numbers were fantastic this weekend. 0 big chances conceded, 1 shot on target conceded. That was the best defensive performance of the weekend. I kind of expect Chelsea to win this 1-0. Yeah, it should be a good game. Alonso is an interesting pick. So 5.5 million all summer, all preseason. I wanted to get Chilwell in my team. He didn't play in any preseason games, so I had to avoid him. And it's typical that the person that sort of replaces him picks up a 15-pointer game week 1. So yeah, is absolutely typical of FPL. But Alonso got a quarter of last season's points in just this game. And I think he's not really a nailed option at the back for Chelsea. I think Rudiger probably is the most secure option to go for. But despite Chelsea's fixture ticker, which does look a little bit horrible, I'll bring it back up on screen. God, I'm slipping down my camera. Sorry, guys. Yeah, Chelsea's fixture ticker does look quite horrible with Arsenal, Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Tottenham. I think it is in the next 4. I do expect them to pick up maybe a couple clean sheets in there, and Rudiger to be involved. So in helping them to do that. So yeah, I like the Chelsea backline despite the fixtures, which yeah, I could be looking at Rudiger in for sure in the not too distant future. Finally on Arsenal, I just wanted to mention Tierney because I don't think it's all bad for them. So Tierney posted good numbers, 2 shots in the box, 6 key passes, and at just 5 million could be one to hold for them. So yeah, I think if you've got Tierney, maybe don't look to get rid of him just yet. They've got 2 tricky fixtures coming up in Chelsea and I'm not sure who they're playing game week 3. It even says on my graphic. Man City, of course, away, but then after that they've got Norwich. So I'd be tempted to hold Tierney until game week 4 if you've got him. Right, let's read some more messages in the chat. So Charlie says thoughts on Rafinha and Barnes to Benrahma and Greenwood. It's definitely players I've been thinking of as well because I do have Barnes in my team, and Rafinha, Benrahma and Greenwood are all sort of replacement options I've been thinking of there. But yeah, I think with Rafinha and Barnes, maybe a few more game weeks. Rafinha had some good numbers against United. I think coming up against Everton this weekend at home, Leeds are going to want to put on a show. I think home advantage is going to be back in a big way this season, and I think these first 2 game weeks where every team obviously is going to play at home at least once, I think you should try and give him the benefit of the doubt. So with Rafinha, for me, if I had him, I'd keep him for this weekend 100% because I think against an Everton back line and playing for an attacking team such as Leeds, I feel like he can do well in there. Barnes is a little bit more of an interesting one, especially if you're thinking Benrahma or Greenwood. The reason I say that, Barnes seems... He's a smaller piece in the Leicester jigsaw. I kind of was hoping in game week 1 he would have sort of the impact that he did in the Community Shield game. I think because Leicester have got quite a good team where points come from a lot of different places. I mean, Pereira can pick up points, Tielemans can pick up points, we know Vardy can pick up points, Maddison can pick up points, Perez can chip in with the odd ones. There's a lot of ways or sort of FPL options that are typically involved. I feel that with West Ham from an attacking point, I feel that those options are perhaps a little bit slimmer going into the start of this season. Benrahma obviously played so far forward in the second half against Newcastle, picked up a golden assist. He looks fairly nailed, especially if Lingard doesn't come in, and I think he and Antonio are sort of the best attacking options there. So I do like Benrahma. Barnes to Benrahma is something I've been looking at. Maybe not this weekend, but maybe the following. Like I said at the start of the show, Benrahma was someone I had in my team up until the Thursday before the game week started, and I had to get rid. Well, I didn't have to get rid. I got rid for Barnes, and I regretted it. Greenwood, like I mentioned a minute ago, I do fancy him in the Southampton fixture. It looks like he's been relied upon by Ollie. The difficulty with Greenwood for me is there's so many different options competing for that United front line at the moment. You've got Greenwood, Sancho, Cavani could come back in a couple of weeks. You've got Pogba who could swift out to the left of the front three if they change their midfield formation. Martial, of course. Lingard at the moment I noticed is back in training. I'd be surprised if Lingard gets in there ahead of Greenwood, obviously, but I mean it just adds to the potential rotation there. So yeah, for me, I kind of feel like Rafinha would be a stronghold. Barnes is a wait and see for this weekend, see how he gets on. Right, let's move on to West Ham Leicester, which is actually the last game of the game week. So if you guys want to pull up some more questions, I'll be happy to go through them all before we wrap up the show after I reveal my team. On West Ham, Benrahma, like I said just a moment ago, he had a quiet first half, but much improved in the second against Newcastle. Ended on 12 points, which was about a fifth of last season's total points. I'm surprised he's not had more than his 175k new owners, and at 175k new owners. On Antonio played really well as well. He's 7.5 million still. I expect he'll go up, have a price rise. He's in just 28% of teams at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the 30% threshold this game week. Antonio just looked so clinical. He looked fit, and despite the fact he missed the penalty, I think his all-round performance was really good. And the thing about Antonio is West Ham don't really have many backup options in that area. So as long as he's fit, he's probably going to be starting every Premier League game. And I'd expect him to to better his last season goal tally. He looks like he's sort of hitting the peak of his career, especially sort of towards the end of last season, and hopefully the start of this he can go on a bit of a run. So our West Ham also got some good fixtures coming up, so they're third overall on the ticker after this game week. Fifth overall on the ticker. They've got Leicester, Crystal Palace to come in the next two, and Newcastle in game week 5. That's not right. They can't have got Newcastle in game week 5. They had a good game against Newcastle, so I mean to say, created 6 big chances against them, and I think they look good. It's a difficult game to call against Leicester. Like I say, they played quite well defensively against Wolves. Only conceded 3 shots on target, so decent defensive display against them. I think this will be quite a tight game this season, which historically it hasn't been. West Ham won both meetings last season, scored 6 goals in the process. But I kind of feel like Leicester look tight defensively, and I think it'll be a close game this one. Amati, 4 million for Leicester, got his cleaner. Schmeichel at 5 million for Leicester, looked good for consistent returns, bagged a 9-pointer in game week 1 against Wolves. You know that with Schmeichel, he's going to be a sure starter in the team, so I think there's some, he could be good if you haven't already got set on a goalkeeper for this season. I think Schmeichel looks decent in what will be an improved Leicester back line, I imagine, when they get Vestergaard in. And like I said about Barnes a minute ago, I do have some stats on him. So 1 shot in the box. He could have put 1 on a plate for Vardy, but sort of messed up his final ball. We played just 77 minutes. I'm definitely going to give him this game week. I don't know how other Barnes owners feel about it, but just definitely this week for Barnes, just to see how he gets on. But after that, he could be going towards the chopping block. We'll have to see. They do have Norwich away in game week 3, so I could hold on. Could be holding on for that one. A couple of mentions in the chat. Is it possible to have Kane, Lukaku, Salah and Bruno in the same team? Now I wanted to mention this because obviously Lukaku has been added to the game It'd be interesting to see if he features against Arsenal. He's coming at 11.5 million. He's obviously the talk of the town at the moment, the talk of the Twitter community. The fact that I've got him on the thumbnail is a big deal at the moment because he's got the potential, I think, to break up the template, because I think Chelsea are going to play to his strengths. There's a few teams in the league that could have done with sort of a centre forward. Man City, Man United, obviously he'd been there before, but he really fits in with Chelsea's style of play. I think they're going to play to his strengths. You know, he's going to start pretty much week in, week out in the league. He's got the pedigree. He's done it in this league before, and I feel like with the creative players Chelsea have got in Havertz, I imagine Werner will move out wide. We've got Mount, who we mentioned earlier, Pulisic. I feel like there's going to be good potential for Lukaku to have a big season. And it's 11.5. I think he's a really good option. And this game, I'm not sure if he's going to start. I kind of feel like he may make him off the bench. I imagine he'll be training this week. He would have retained some of his fitness from the Euros. And the fact that Chelsea have got Lukaku to call upon from the bench only strengthens them. So, Lukaku for me, I'm looking at him from game week 7. I feel like I might be tempted into playing my wild card, but there could be a way in to my team for Lukaku. I think it would mean having to get rid of Salah or Bruno, and that's where I think the sort of the difficult aspect of it lies. I think depending on how well Greenwood and Jota look around that point, one of those two could make way for their teammate, or maybe there'd be a Man City player that sort of emerges. Maybe by then Mahrez is offering really good value at sort of 9.5 million. Perhaps Son is offering really good value at 9.5 million, and perhaps you can make the decision to switch Salah or Bruno to Son and find that extra cash to upgrade one of your front line to Lukaku. But I think he is really going to smash up the template this start of this season, and I'm interested to see what the new template will look like around game week 7. A few more questions in the chat. Souček may be flying under the radar, Paul says. He looks very good and always a threat at set pieces. I kind of agree. I had Souček at the start of last season. I think he started at 5 million. He was an absolute diamond for me, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does put in some good performances. I think West Ham have just got a solid team. Rice and Souček are a fantastic pairing in the middle. The fact that Rice holds allows Souček to bomb on a little bit like what happened in the Euros of England, Rice and Phillips. I wouldn't be surprised if Souček picks up maybe 5 to 10 goals this season from set plays or open play, and he did well, didn't he, to react from the penalty miss to be there first but ahead of the keeper, because he's not known for his pace. Right, I'll bring up my team before we finish, because I've been rabbiting on for 40 minutes on the preview. Here it is. I think it pretty much picks itself this week, especially considering my bench options. White I don't fancy at home against Chelsea. I just fancy the double Liverpool defence, and Shaw ahead of him as well. Taylor and Brownhill obviously got both Burnley players. I've got a difficult away fixture against Liverpool, so I'm not expecting much from either of them. So I think the team pretty much picks itself. The captaincy is my biggest conundrum at the moment. I think at the moment Salah has got the armband because Liverpool are playing back in front of a crowd at Anfield, and I think based on what we saw in Game Week 1 with teams turning up for their home fans, I feel like Liverpool are going to do the same. And Salah looks so involved, as he always does, but he looked so involved against Norwich. It was great to see, and I kind of feel like he's going to bust his curse against Burnley and knock in a few goals. So at the moment, he's got the captaincy. I don't doubt that Bruno's going to return as well. United have got a great record against Southampton, and Southampton have played quite open in the past, especially last season against them, and Bruno's done really well then. But for me, even though it's the early fixture, and there's a lot of hoodoo surrounding the captaincy in the early fixture, I do fancy Salah this game week. On the transfer front, I think it'll sort of come down to how Gundu recovers from this shoulder injury. Like I mentioned a little bit earlier on the stream, the latest news is, I think, from Paul Hurst. He's a really reputable journalist on Twitter. I think he's at Paul Hurst if anyone wants to check him out. But he's basically said that Gundogan's injury isn't as bad as first feared, and he could still play the home game against Norwich. So the fact that we're only Tuesday today, I'm going to leave it until the end of the week to see what Pep Guardiola says about Gundogan's involvement. If he rules him out, my go-to transfer will definitely be Benrahma. If he says he's fine, he'll stay. And I think otherwise, all my team will stay as they are, and I'll look to use my 2 free transfers ahead of game week 3 if I need to make any major changes. I think the key player I'm definitely keeping an eye on at the moment is Benrahma. I don't really want to miss out on a price rise there, because I think he could be. He's undervalued at the moment, considering how vital he is to that West Ham team, and they've got some good fixtures. So, yeah, he's one I'm certainly high on the watch list. Raphael says in the chat, it's not really a related question, but I'll go for it. Here in Brazil, we think that the European teams don't care much for the Club World Cup. There are rumours that teams play unwillingly. Is that true? It's not really an FPL question, but from my point of view, I think it's always quite exciting to play in the Club World Cup. I think it's quite a big honour, so I don't think it's unwilling. I think some teams probably see it as an inconvenience because of the travel, and when it's situated in the season, it's always around Christmas time, but I think there's a lot of prestige involved. I think it's an alright tournament. Zach says, thoughts on KDB, seeing as Gundo could be out and the low ownership could have a massive haul. Yeah, I do like KDB for this weekend. If Salah and Bruno hadn't performed so well in game week 1, I'd be thinking really seriously about taking either one of those out for KDB this weekend. I think City, even though KDB only featured quite a small amount of time against Tottenham, they looked so much better when he was on. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, Norwich weren't great defensively. They were sat back a lot, allowed Liverpool a lot of touches in the box, a lot of shots in the box, and we know City at the Etihad, again, in front, like I keep saying, in front of their own fans, I think they are going to be attack. So, I think KDB could be on for a monster haul. I think at least, there could be even a couple of City players who hit double digits this weekend, which is why my fingers are so firmly crossed that Gundu, is okay. I really hope he makes it. Palwan says in the chat, I hope I've pronounced that right, he wants to replace Smith Rowe, and because the fixtures like to go for Brentford, question, Mwembo or Canos, or someone else. Canos price is going up to 5-6 soon. He only has 5.5 million. Tricky one. I'm not sure what I'd do with that money. I'm not really sure I would like to go for Brentford either. I still think Mwembo and Canos are both unproven. I get the fact that Canos is going up in price, mainly I guess because people have seen that he scored well in game week 1 and they want to replace him. But for me, I'd probably look elsewhere. 5.5 million. Someone I mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a left field pick because of low ownership. Andros Townsend at Everton, I think he's still 5.5 million. His super low ownership, less than 1%. Everton have got some good fixtures. Townsend's obviously been brought in to put the ball in the box, and he did so, like I mentioned earlier. I think he had 7 crosses in game week 1 alone, which was the 6th highest of all players. Sixth highest of all players. And Everton have got some good fixtures. So if you're looking for a 5.5 million player, I'd seriously consider Townsend. Zach again has said in the chat, is it worth a 4-point hit for KDB and Saar to come in for Gundu and Mahrez if Gundu isn't fit? I think if Gundogan isn't fit and your bench isn't up to it, it's not a bad 4-point hit. Saar looked in good form for Watford, and I do think KDB is. As soon as he comes back in, he's not going to leave the team. You know, you're pretty safe with KDB. He doesn't really get affected by rotation very much. So I'd consider that. I'd probably sit on. I'd 75% confident of doing it if Gundogan's out. I hope. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for joining me. We clocked in at 46 minutes, which was quite a tidy amount of time. As I get through doing the shows this season, I think it's quite fun for me to try and work out how to keep talking to myself. I've usually got in the past, like if any of you are old FPL Cougars viewers, you know I had Kieran to bounce off to. Having you all in the chat is fantastic, just to pick questions and discuss things with. I hope as the season goes on, we get more of a community going. I'm going to set up a Discord. I'm going to post about it on my community page on the channel. Hopefully we can get some chit chat going on there as well. And more than happy to chat to you guys, and hope that together we can finish quite highly. I'll be doing an update next week as well. I'll start doing the FPL Cougar League and looking at who's doing well in that. I think game week 1's always a bit difficult to judge it, but from game week 2 I'm going to share out who's top of that league. So you'll have to let me know in the chat how you're doing in our mini league as well. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Have a great game week, and I hope your captain scores big. And